Have you ever looked at someone and thought, how are they so unaffected? How do they walk through betrayal, rejection, and loss without losing themselves? Have you ever wished you could be that composed? Not numb, not cold, just steady, untouchable from within. Maybe you're tired of pretending you're okay when you're not, tired of carrying an image that demands constant strength, when all you've ever really wanted was to exhale, to feel peace instead of pressure, to exist without feeling like you're one breath away from breaking. But here's the truth. No one says out loud. The more you run from pain, the more it controls the rhythm of your life. The more you try to avoid being hurt, the more power the world has over you. As long as you keep building walls, hiding behind distractions, numbing every feeling that gets too loud, you stay trapped by words that cut too deep, by silence that feels like abandonment, by disappointment that whispers, you're still not safe. And it's not your fault. It's the script most of us were handed. Some people just learned how to perform it better than others. Carl Jung once said, "We are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become." Maybe that's where it starts. Not in erasing your pain, but in finally understanding it. Not in resisting the world, but in integrating what the world reveals inside you. True strength isn't pretending nothing can hurt you. It's knowing exactly who you are, even when you're bleeding, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. And if you're still here, reading this, that means something in you is done pretending, done patching over wounds, done giving others the power to decide how you feel. This isn't just a video. This is a mirror, and what you see in it might hurt, but that pain, it's not the enemy. It might just be the beginning of your freedom. Let's begin. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, if people just treated you better, you'd finally be at peace? If they were kinder, more thoughtful, more loyal. If the world just gave you the love you give to others, maybe then you'd stop hurting. Maybe then you'd finally feel safe. But here's the truth most people never tell you. It's not the world that wounds you. It's the echo those wounds awaken inside. You think it was the betrayal that broke you, but what really shattered you was how deeply it confirmed something you already feared. You think it's their silence that hurts, but what truly aches is the voice inside that whispers, you were never enough to begin with. The real pain isn't out there. It's in here. It's the meaning you attach to every moment, the story you tell yourself in the dark, the ache you've never looked at directly, just buried under pride, perfectionism, and pretending you're okay. Carl Jung taught us something most people spend their lives avoiding. The pain you feel in the outside world is just a reflection of what remains unhealed in your inner world. That's why one person can walk through chaos and still stand tall, while another breaks from a single careless comment. It's not about what happens, it's about where it lands inside you. And here comes a hard truth. You still suffer so deeply. You're still trying to earn love, earn respect, earn loyalty, as if they're rewards for perfect performance. But control is an illusion, and as long as you chase it, you'll stay tense, fragile, afraid, always bracing for the next unpredictable moment, always trying to prevent what can't be prevented. If you want to stop suffering, stop trying to protect yourself from pain. You don't need more control. You need more awareness. Because when you understand your patterns, your wounds, your triggers, what others do starts to lose its power over you. You still suffer, but you don't lose yourself. And that shift, that's the beginning of true inner freedom. Because the world can only touch what's still open inside. The words, the actions, the neglect, they only hurt if they find an open door within you. And that's where we go next. Into the part of yourself that's been quietly pulling the strings, not to control it, but to finally understand it. Because real transformation doesn't begin when the world changes. It begins when you do. You weren't born lost. You were just never shown the map. Instead, you were told a lie, that you're in control of your life, that if you work hard enough, stay kind enough, do everything right, you can steer away from pain. But look closer, because if that were true, why do you keep ending up in the same storms? Why do you sabotage the very things you say you want? Why do you feel triggered by things that make no logical sense? This isn't just random chaos. It's not bad luck. It's your unconscious trying to wake you up. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." You think you're choosing, but most of the time, you're just reacting, living on autopilot, repeating patterns you don't even recognize, feeling things you can't explain, then wondering why everything feels so out of control. But here's what's really happening. Beneath your awareness, there's an entire system running the show, a hidden network of old memories, unhealed wounds, buried emotions, shame, fear, grief, desire, all the things you've pushed down instead of faced. Jung called this hidden world the unconscious, and it's not some vague fog. It's alive, it's organized, and it's shaping your reality every single day. You keep tripping over pain you never cleaned up, just swept under the rug, hoping it would disappear. But it didn't. Now it colors how you see everything, how you love, how you respond, how you choose. Jung also said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. But instead of acceptance, you judge yourself. You repress your needs, you silence your emotions, thinking that will make them go away. But pain doesn't disappear when ignored. It mutates. It finds new doors to sneak through. It shows up as the partner you can't trust, the dream you abandon just before reaching it, the fear that grabs you the moment things start going well. This isn't weakness, it's unconscious programming, and until you bring it to the surface, it will keep running your life. If you truly want to stop being hurt, stop running from the parts of yourself you're afraid to feel. Because as long as you don't understand your unconscious, you'll keep reacting to emotions that aren't even yours anymore. The more you try to shield yourself from the world, the more you leave your inner world unguarded. But there is another way, and it's not built on defense. It's built on deep integration. To become untouchable is not to block everything out. It's to know yourself so completely that nothing can blindside you anymore. Because once you know what lives inside you, the outside world loses its grip. And that's where we go next. Not toward building armor, but building clarity. Because real strength doesn't come from resistance. It comes from recognition, so take a breath. The next part will take you further in. Most people don't become distant because they're cold. They become distant because they're wounded. They've learned that vulnerability leads to pain, so they shut down. They build walls and call them boundaries. They wear masks and call it strength. They stop feeling and start performing. They repeat the same lines like mantras. I don't care anymore. I'm fine. Nothing gets to me. But behind those words is someone still bleeding quietly, still aching behind the silence, still longing to be seen without being shattered. Because the real problem was never feeling too much. It was never sadness, never anger, never love. The real problem is not understanding those emotions, not knowing where they come from, not knowing yourself. Carl Jung once wrote, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but when touching a human soul, be just another human soul." And that soul you keep hidden beneath the surface, the one behind all the discipline and control. It isn't broken, it's buried, and it's asking to be brought back into the light. Emotional strength has been misunderstood. It's not about pretending nothing hurts, not about brushing off pain, not about silencing your truth to keep the peace. It's not about being unbothered. It's about being whole. It's about integration. It's about finally facing the parts of you that you thought made you weak and realizing they were the path to your depth. You don't become untouchable by guarding yourself from life. You become untouchable when there's nothing left inside you to hide. Nothing shame can use against you. Nothing fear can twist. When you integrate your shadows, your flaws, your fears, your insecurities, you stop flinching at every threat. You stop exploding. You stop retreating. You observe. You choose. And that is real power. Jung called this process individuation, not the pursuit of perfection, but the sacred path of becoming whole. Not what the world told you to be, not the mask you wear to be accepted, but the person who rises when ego meets the unconscious, when your light holds hands with your shadow. And here's what no one warns you about. The more you avoid pain, the more fragile you become. The more you pretend to be untouchable, the more easily you break. But when you finally sit with your pain, when you embrace what is beautiful and what is ugly, what is noble and what is shameful, there's nothing left for the world to dismantle. And that kind of self-knowing, that's where true strength lives. Yes, this path takes courage. The courage to take off the mask, the courage to feel what you've tried so long to escape. Because within your deepest pain lies the blueprint of your transformation, and in the next part, that's exactly where we're going. Not to escape suffering, but to understand how it can lead you back to your true self. You didn't just stumble into pain. You were trained to run from it. Since childhood, you were taught that suffering meant failure, that crying was weakness, that sensitivity made you fragile. So you learned to hold back your tears, to bite your tongue, to smile while your heart was collapsing, and over time, you replaced your instincts with survival. You stopped listening to yourself. You started performing. You convinced yourself that if you could just stay strong enough, you'd never have to feel that heavy ache again. But pain doesn't leave just because you hide from it. It doesn't disappear in denial. It transforms. It returns as restlessness, as anxiety, as sudden anger, as numbness you can't explain, as self-sabotage that always seems to come out of nowhere. Ignored pain doesn't vanish. It becomes the architect of your suffering. It tunnels through your foundation. Until one day, without warning, the life you built on top collapses. Not because you're weak, but because you never healed the cracks beneath the surface. Carl Jung saw suffering differently. To him, pain wasn't a flaw, it was a message. He believed pain was the soul's signal, the unconscious raising its voice, the self, your whole self, trying to be heard. He once wrote, "Depression is like a lady in black. If she appears, don't push her away. Invite her in, offer her a seat, and listen to what she has to say." But we rarely do that. We drown ourselves in distraction. We stay busy. We scroll. We chase the next achievement. Anything to avoid the mirror suffering holds up to us. But the truth is this. What hurts the most isn't the pain itself. It's the inner war, the battle between the part of you that wants to grow and the part that wants everything to stay the same. Pain is the pressure point between expansion and resistance, and growth always comes with a cost. Letting go of old identities, breaking up with comfort. It's grief, it's death and rebirth in the same lifetime, but in the rubble of what you once were, in the ashes of the version you clung to. Something real begins to rise, when there's nothing left to perform, no strength left to fake. You meet the person you've always been, beneath the fear, beneath the armor, beneath the mask. And in that moment, suffering becomes sacred, because it brings you face to face with the only thing that can truly free you, yourself. Jung understood this deeply. He knew pain isn't the end, it's the beginning, not a glitch in the system, but the system itself demanding transformation, the path to wholeness, what he called individuation, always begins with descent, and most people turn back. But you've already stepped in, and that means something inside you is ready to stop circling the pain, and finally walk through it. In the next part, we'll explore what that journey really looks like. Not many people are willing to burn the version of themselves they spent years building. Even fewer are willing to stand in the ashes and wait to see who they truly are. That's what individuation demands. It's not a self-help trend. It's not a productivity hack. It's a reckoning. Because this path doesn't flatter your ego. It dismantles it. It doesn't promise ease. It promises truth. And the truth, it breaks everything you built to avoid it. Carl Jung called individuation the process of becoming who you are. But most people miss what that really means. It's not about becoming more. It's about shedding everything that was never truly you. And that's where the pain begins, because you start to realize so much of what defined you was survival, was performance, was the mask you wore to be loved, to be accepted. You are not your titles, not your trauma, not your curated identity. All of that was armor, and armor, no matter how polished, always weighs you down. Individuation is life pulling you beyond survival. It begins the moment your unconscious rises, dragging everything hidden, buried, and disowned to the surface. It demands that the persona, the version of you the world has seen, be dissolved. Jung wrote, "The persona is a mask of collective convenience." In simpler words, you've been living as who the world needed you to be. Now, it's time to become who you are meant to be. And that means tearing away layers that once felt like skin. It means walking through fire, not to become invincible, but to emerge whole. You begin to understand. Being untouchable doesn't come from shielding yourself. It comes from having already faced the things that once owned you. You've met your shame, your loneliness, your rage, and instead of hiding them, you said, "I know you. You don't control me anymore." That's what real power feels like. Not loud, not aggressive, but centered, calm, unafraid. You no longer seek approval. You don't need to win every debate. You don't perform strength. You've embodied it. True emotional armor isn't made of stone. It's made from integration, from merging all your fragmented parts into a stable center that doesn't flinch when life storms. You still feel pain, but it doesn't unravel you. You still face conflict, but you don't abandon yourself, because you've gone beneath the surface and you've made a home there. In the quiet, in the truth, in the depth where clarity lives. But here's the cost. Loneliness. Not isolation, but evolution. Few people will walk this road with you, not because they don't care, but because they're still afraid of what you've already faced. They're still clinging to the masks you've already burned. And so, you'll outgrow people, places, versions of yourself. And now, you stand at the threshold of something rare. A life lived from clarity. Not from fear, not from reaction, but from awareness. That's what we explore next. Not strength as defense, but consciousness as your shield. Because once you truly see, the world loses its power to shape you. Let's take this final step. Healing doesn't guarantee you won't be hurt again, but it does change how you respond when you are. Most people try to protect themselves from life by avoiding emotions, controlling others, or staying distracted. But pain always finds its way through rejection, through silence, through the fear of not being enough. And as long as you stay disconnected from what's happening inside you, the world will keep cutting in the same places. Because it's not what happens, it's what it touches in you. That's why some words feel like knives, why some losses feel like collapse. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists, what you accept transforms." You've been resisting for years, hiding your pain behind perfection, performing strength instead of building it. But real strength isn't control, it's clarity. It's knowing your wounds so the world can no longer weaponize them. You still feel, but you don't fall apart. You still suffer, but you don't lose yourself. That's what true emotional immunity is, not armor, but awareness. The people who stay on the surface get tossed by every wave, but the ones who dive deep find stillness, stability, power, and now that's where you're going. If something inside you awakened today, write it in the comments. I choose awareness, because this isn't the end. It's the moment everything real finally begins.